Now let's talk about benchmarking, which is Local Law 8409. And this applies to, again, buildings over 50,000 square feet. Benchmarking, if you're not familiar with the term, is it's a way to you collect data of the energy performance of your building. So you collect the Con Ed bills, oil bills if you have oil, water usage bills, and so on. And you input that collected data into a software program. For these green building laws, it's going to be a program that the city has developed with the EPA, the federal government's Environmental Protection Agency, and they'll come up with a unique tool for New York City that will have enough buildings in the database to compare your building to. And the screenshot here is of the existing EPA portfolio manager for multifamily residential buildings. So if you're curious about how benchmarking is going to work, you can go on the government website, you can collect your data, and you can input it into the program. You won't get a score, but you can see as a starting point, a baseline, how much energy your building is using. The deadline for us, for people who live in co-ops, condos, multifamily rental buildings, is May 2011. In May 2011, you will have to input your data into the model. That means you have to collect all your 2010 energy data now. So you're going to input all of 2010 data. So we're already in the 9th month, so you should have collected 9 months of your bills already. And if you're not aware of this, you should ask your property manager or alert your board that this is something you're going to have to do. So the good boards, the good property managers, just as a matter of good practice, they will scan your bills every month and keep them, on their systems. And so if you ask for the bills for a year, they'll give them to you. They'll email them to you. So that's not a problem. But if you have to make sure your property manager is doing that. Now the score will be the benchmark will generate a score, but it won't be made public until 2013. So you'll get a score in 2011, but it won't be made public until 2013. The score is from 1 to 100. So it's like, grade school. How did I do on the test? If I score, 85, 90, I feel pretty good. If I score 7, I don't feel so good, So some buildings actually have really low scores. Yes?
Does the data need to be aggregated, or does it have to be specific to, let's say, common space, tenants, et cetera?
That's a good question. So I think it's good to address that.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm not sure I can get it exactly right, but you asked.
I'm sure you'll do better than I do.
Okay. I think where you're headed is you wanted to know, is the data that you have to input just for the common areas, or is it for all the residential units as well? Is it for the whole building? And the answer is it's for the whole building. And in the past, this was very difficult to do. And I'll go into that later because I'll just spend too much time. It's fun for me, but I don't want to waste your time. So the way we're going to do it in the future, and I've already started this, is Con Edison, if you have Con Edison, will give you the aggregate data for your building. So rather than go around and ask all your shareholders for their Con Ed account numbers, and then you can go online and get their account information, Con Ed is providing a service. There's a small fee associated with it, and they will provide you the aggregate data. They will not tell you whose unit it is. They'll divide it by service class numbers. So you'll get service class 1 is like professional office. Service class 2 is residential. So those are the unit owners. It'll be one number per month for electric and then another number for gas. And then service class 9 is the common area. So you'll know everything. And that's what you input into these programs. So it's a lot simpler now than it was. Now, 2013, it's going to go public. So hold that thought because that's important. If it goes public, I mean, it's going to go public in 2013. But when it goes public, if you have a low score, you might want to do something about that, because if you've got shareholders that want to sell their units, or you're a landlord of a rental building and you want to reduce vacancy time and increase rents and have really popular building that you're renting, you want to have a high score, because an energy efficiency score is going to be another indicator of a building's financial health and a sign of good management. Once people are really aware of these green building laws, and you're like the pioneers, you're the first to from the general public to really show an interest in this. This has been going on for a couple of years now among architects and engineers and government, but the public is just kind of getting more interested in this. But I can tell you that prospective tenants, prospective buyers of co-ops and condos, banks, appraisers, they're all going to look at your score. And if it's not public, they may, in 2011 or 2012, they may ask you what your score is. 2013, they won't have to ask you; it will be public. And commercial buildings are way ahead of multifamily residential. Commercial buildings have, for a long time, been trying to reach what we call Energy Star standards, which is a standard that the EPA has with that model I told you about, the portfolio manager model. And they've discovered that what the market values becomes market value. In other words, if you have a high score, the market values that building. And what they've discovered is that the spaces are vacant for a much shorter time than a comparable building with no score or a lower score. And likewise, if they're trying to sell a building, the energy savings goes right to the bottom line, and the building is priced at a higher value and actually sells for a higher value. So commercial landlords are like, they don't have to be told this, they're just doing this. Multifamily building owners need a little bit more prodding. But I think you're going to understand this as we go along. Energy audit and retrocommissioning. This to me is like the most important, other than the benchmarking. So I want to spend a lot of time on this one. Local Law 87. Now, I don't know if all of you know what an energy audit actually is. So I thought I would just take a minute to read the definition from the law. It's a systematic process of identifying and developing modifications and improvements of base building systems, which I'll tell you what that is, including but not limited to alterations of such systems and the installation of new equipment, insulation, and other generally recognized energy efficiency technologies to optimize energy performance of the building and achieve energy savings. So that's the whole point. So it's a data collection process on the building systems. Building systems means anything to run the building, anything that protects you, walls, windows, doors, that's referred to as the envelope. You've got 6 sides, the roof, the bottom, and then the 4 walls. You've got 6 sides to think about. Heating, ventilation, the roofing system, your domestic hot water system, all your lighting and electrical systems, elevators, escalators, and all the motors and pumps that go along with them. So those are the systems. This picture in here on the right is a picture of a technician on the roof of a building that has mechanical ventilation, and what he's doing in this bigger picture, he's as a result of an energy audit, they discovered that the ventilation system in a centrally air-conditioned building was leaking, which means that it's leaking your air-conditioned cool air in the summer. That's going out through the walls and out to the atmosphere. And in the winter, it's losing the heat through the same vent system out to the walls. So it's wasteful, it's expensive. This process enables them to seal the vents where they find the leaks. Another test they might do is measuring the hot water in the building. If it's over 120 degrees, that's too hot. I heard about a building today where it was 180 degrees, which means you can scald yourself in like 1 second. So you want to make sure that it's set much lower in the down in the basement to not hurt people, and you don't want to have it so high that you're wasting money and energy. Again, this law affects all buildings over 50,000 square feet, and an audit will include an evaluation of the potential energy upgrades, including the initial cost and the annual savings. And I'll show you an example of a summary of that in a minute. The benchmarking is going to help you establish a baseline to help you measure future performance. So it's a good idea to do the benchmarking yourself now, and now you know that's where you start. And now anything you do after that is an improvement, and you can start monitoring your Con Ed bills, your oil bills, your water bills, and so on. Water bills are important because those rates go up double digits every year. That's a very costly resource. Let's see. So at the end of this, the auditor, the energy auditor, which has to be a certified professional. You can't hire just any engineering firm to do this. The law is very specific about what kinds of certifications are required. And that team of people will put together what's called an energy audit report. And it can take them many, many, many weeks to do this. There's a lot of modeling involved, a lot of site visits. It's very detailed work, very labor-intensive work. They go around and count literally every light bulb in the building. That's just one thing that they do. Here's a sample of a report summary that you might receive after an energy audit. And it will give you, for each line item suggested, they'll give you the installed costs, the annual savings, and then the cost divided by the savings is going to give you the what we call the payback, or how many years to get back your investment. We'll talk about the NYSERDA program later. They're going to use slightly different way of measuring the payback, but we don't need to go into that right now. But as you can see from the list, there's some high-cost items and some low-cost items. But even some of the high-cost items, like at the bottom, cogeneration, maybe a $300,000 item, but it's giving you almost $40,000 a year in savings, and that's less than an 8-year payback. That's not so bad for a really big piece of equipment that's going to last you 25 or 30 years. We'll talk about the financing of big things like this. In the end, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a big capital outlay. There are ways to finance it that can avoid that. Low-flow water devices are a really fast and inexpensive way to start saving a lot of money, and the payback for this example is 6 months. Premium efficiency motors means high efficiency motors. The new term is premium, and it means, I think, over 90% efficiency or something like that. Common area lighting, if you're still using incandescent lighting in your building, you shouldn't. You just shouldn't. You should be exploring really attractive CFL lighting or some kind of fluorescent lighting or LEDs in some cases. So, retro commissioning. After you do the audit, you're not finished. The law requires you to do the audit and the retro commissioning. You can't just do one. And again, the policy behind this is that there has been a lot of government incentive programs to encourage people to do audits, and so they do audits, and they get paid. They get the money to do the audit, and then what happens is they don't do anything with it. They don't implement the changes. So it's a real waste of resources. So for years and years, our state government had a carrot. They held out a carrot. It was a lot of money. We're going to pay for your audit, and we'll pay for you to do these things. And a lot of people just didn't know, or didn't get into it, or didn't realize it. And now the government is saying, look, we can't do this anymore. Now you're going to have a carrot and a stick. So the law is the stick. You're going to have to do this. The carrot is still there, but it's a smaller carrot. The money is still there, but there's less of it. And we'll talk about that later. So retro commissioning you have to do, and again you have to hire a specifically certified team, individual and team under the law. And retro commissioning, you can think of it like tuning up your car as opposed to putting a new engine in your car. It's really like a tune-up, cleaning, things like recalibrating. The definition in the law is a systematic process for optimizing the energy efficiency of existing base building systems through the identification and correction of deficiencies in such systems. And then it goes on about cleaning and sensors, controls, program settings. Basically, they're going to look at all the systems that we mentioned earlier. HVAC is central air, so it's heating, ventilation, air conditioning. DHW is domestic hot water. It's going to look at all your systems. They're going to look at how the systems are performing compared to how they were designed to perform.